pretty much treated my daughter like she was an adult. So I would
Yeah.
like give her the chance to talk back, and you could have an opinion, and we could sit down and have talk about this, and like
Hey people, it's your boy Ish, and welcome to season 3 of the podcast. Now, in this season, we have a lot in store for you, the listeners. But in case you're a new listener, let me reintroduce Loudly Saying It to you. This is a podcast that is aimed at young black men. In the podcast, we talk about life, relationships, business, health, and any other topics you've always wanted to discuss, but we're too afraid to. Look, there's no judgment here, so let's just jump right in.
What's up, my people? It's your boy Ish. Today I have Cant joining me from my neighbor in the north, and I'm not talking about Westeros. I'm not talking about any of the Game of Thrones places. I'm talking about Canada. For those of you who don't know, those of you who don't remember, Cant is author of 2 books. One of them is Thoughts of a Fractured Soul, and the most recent one is Beauty Scars. And he's also the creator of Cry Magazine, which is my definite new thing on Medium. I've been going through it, just consuming all the content on it. You guys definitely want to get on that. So I'm just going to go and let Karen say hello to the people, and I'm going to give you guys what we want to talk about today. So Karen, just go ahead and say hello to the people.
how's everybody doing out there? My name's Kern Carter. Yeah, and I am from Toronto, which is the real north, especially
Cool.
compared to where you guys are out there. But yeah, like you said, I'm an author of 2 books. I'm also a freelance writer, so that's what I do for a living. I help other people kind of share their stories being a ghostwriter, which is a very interesting kind of job to have, I guess you could say. I'm also a father. I have an 18-year-old daughter. I'm a single father of an 18-year-old daughter. And I'm just an overall creative person who likes bringing people together. I think once we start talking about Cry, that's really what I'm about. I really love bringing creative minds together. I love gathering people and elevating someone else's work. And I love telling stories. So that's really what I'm about.
No, that was awesome. Yeah, I did not mention the ghostwriting part. I was going to save that because I have a lot of questions for that.
Okay.
Today, we'll be talking about the struggles that Black men face when raising children, and especially in the current space that we're in right now. Look, we all have struggles as parents, but the thing is, with Black men raising teenagers, it's a whole different beast. Like, these people are different species from us. They don't speak the same language we do. They don't think the same way we do, and it's just everything you say, even hello, can be misinterpreted to something completely different.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, because I go through that every single day.
Oh my gosh.
It's I open the door, I say, "Hey, what you doing?" Nothing. Why? It's like, I was just checking on you, man. Like, I
Yeah.
just want to know what you're doing.
I
That's
get
it.
that too. I
It's
get
like,
that
yeah,
all the time.
yeah, it's like everything is an attack to them. It's ridiculous, and that's why I was like, "Oh my God, there's somebody out there that gets exactly what I'm going through."
Yes.
And it's just everybody used to tell me like hey Ish, it's different when it's a girl. I'm like, yeah, I don't think it is, but Karen, that's why you're here today. We're gonna talk about it. See, like, is it different when you have a daughter? Because they're both 18, which is
Yeah.
crazy, and when we're in different. Well, we're still in America, in the Americas, but you're in Canada. I mean, in the United States, so we should have some differences, hopefully.
Yeah.
But I still think teenagers is just a whole different species. It's crazy the way they think, and I don't remember me being that way
Mhm.
growing up. But I'm pretty sure my mom would say, "Well, you're probably the same way."
Exactly.
And because when we speak, and I tell her, it's like, "Well, this is what he's doing," and she just goes, "Well, at least now you know what I was going through." And I'm like, no, I didn't do that stuff. But hey, and they're also being raised in a different era where
Yeah.
all these things is going on, like Black Lives Matter movement, things that are going on in America, the things that are going on in Canada. And I was reading about some stuff in Canada. I believe there was a kid that was killed back in like 2010 or something, Junior Manning.
Mhm.
And that's the one that got me because it kind of reflective of what happened over here recently, George Floyd, where he was thrown on the floor and they applied pressure on his back and everything. He eventually died from that, and the Canadian police denied that they even touched him.
Mhm.
And but it was witnesses that saw it during the Inquisition said, well, it was actually they actually applied pressure to his back and everything. That's what caused his death. But we have that where and I don't think there was that much videos or anything back then in 2010. But then we have what happened recently over here, where there were videos, and this guy was just comfortably on this guy's neck for all that time, watching the camera and
Yeah,
doing.
yeah,
It's like the boldness of that action, and having my son and thinking, hey, he's like almost 6'2" now. This guy is almost 6'2". He's way taller than me. Is like got at least 20 pounds on me as well. I'm pretty sure he can take me, but it's just the fear that he can never do it because I'm his dad. And
hmm
I just like that mental block that I placed in there because I'm pretty sure if he tried to,
You
he could
got to get
probably
it
take me.
early. You got to get it
Yeah,
early
early.
for sure.
I succeeded in that. I got that in early, and just thinking about that, him seeing him going out in the streets and maybe saying something, and cop telling him something, and just being teenagers and trying to be rebellious, trying to say, "Well, you can't tell me how to do that." And he tries that with me as well. But it's I understand he's a teenager. I understand that's their thing to try us,
hmm
and I know how to react when he does that, and I know how to kind of de-escalate things like that. But then having a cop who has this bias to say, "Well, here's this black tall man," because he's not going to be seen as a kid. He's trying to be combative, and my next best thing to do is to subdue him, and the only way I can do that is by using force. And so I think about that all the time, and I've seen videos of how girls are being treated as well. There was a video going around in social media of some girls in a swimming pool, and the cops were called, and they held this teenage girl, just throwing her back and forth as if this was a wrestling match. And I'm thinking, it's like, that's somebody's daughter out there that
Yeah.
you're doing that kind of thing to. So I just want you to speak on what's going on like in Canada, that whenever you wake up in the morning, that gets you, it's like, well, this could be my child. Like, how do I have that conversation with her?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of the same things, and it's also different at the same time. So it's the same because there's racism. So I live in Toronto. There's a lot of diversity up here. Um, but I think people have to understand, like when I say there's differences, there's only about just over 1 million Black people in all of Canada, like the entire country, and most of them live in Toronto, right? So my experience in Toronto is actually a very different experience than the rest of Canada would be. So we see it's more normal for us here to see other Black people. It's more normal for us here to interact with a bunch of different races, Asian especially. Italian, Russian, everything. Like it's all that diversity really is here. Um, but at the same time, even though that we are totally like I'd say like a safe city, and a city that's kind of figured out how to kind of let each culture express themselves in their own way. We still have those same issues of systematic racism. We still have companies or organizations where all the directors and all the bosses are white. We still have problems of people saying racist things. I've gone through problems myself with cops. I've gone through being in a park. I was telling someone this. I was sitting in a park one time, and in my car, I was by at my mom's area. My mom had moved to the suburbs by then, and the cop just came out and put me in handcuffs, and asked him, "Why are you putting me in handcuffs? I'm just sitting here." He said, "Oh, someone called the police and said you're out here selling drugs." Selling drugs. I'm like, "Check my car." I was so open. I was like, "Check my car. Take a breathalyzer, see if I was drunk." I opened myself up to all of that, and they still not only arrested me but took me to the station, impounded the car, everything. So we still have that stuff that happens. I would say the major difference is that when you do see a cop, you do feel nervous. Um, I would be, and I'll have to speak for myself, but I think I could speak for other Black men too. In Canada, when we see a cop, I wouldn't say we necessarily fear for our life. I think we fear for our safety and our freedom, but we don't, in our mind, we're not like, this cop is going to shoot me. I don't think that's the first thing that comes to our head. You know what I'm saying? We're just like, that's a cop. He could come and try to mess up my car or something like that, which I've also gone through. Um, but yeah, I think the main difference would be we don't necessarily fear for our life in the same way. But we definitely um we want to debunk that whole system though, because that whole system is is still very corrupted, um, still very disproportionately um, unfair towards Black men and women. We had recent cases where I believe his name was Devontae Miller, where two undercover cops beat him so bad that he lost his eye, and their court case just got settled the other day, and it just the outcome just wasn't enough. I think the cops are not doing any jail time, if I'm corrected. I might be wrong about that, but
Wow.
the charges, regardless, anyway, were not sufficient. So we have those things. Those things still happen up here, and I think as long as there's Black people and other races, that's where that's how it's going to be, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, that's crazy. Because I actually had the same thing when I was pulled over. A friend and I were driving to Florida, uh, just to hang out, spring break. Two young men just trying to go have fun, and this cop trailed us for about 5 miles, and eventually pulled us over. And came up with this bogus excuse because over here the license plate, sometimes you have the decorative frames around them. And my friend's car was registered in Maryland, but we were passing through Georgia. And he goes, "Well, having that frame around your license plate is illegal." I'm like,
Wow.
"But this guy does not live in Georgia. Why would that be illegal if I'm driving through?" And pulled us over. Next, you know, two other cop cars came with the dogs, the sniffing dogs, everything. "But do you guys
Wow.
mind us searching the car?" I was like, "Go ahead and search the car." I was like, "What you guys will find is a bunch of alcohol in the trunk because we're
Hmm.
about to go have fun in Florida." And they did that. They sat us for about maybe an hour, 2 hours, just sat us on the side of the road on the highway. And then after a while, um, we got a call, and I just kind of played it off like, "Hey, oh yeah," played it off as if I was talking to a lawyer.
Uh-huh.
And the next thing you know, all the other cop cars disappeared. They say you guys can go ahead and go have fun, be safe. I'm like, well, and I'll never. This place, I think it's Ryan County. I'll never forget that county. It's Ryan County in
Wow.
Georgia, and I lived in Georgia for 11 years.
Hmm.
That had never happened to me. So when that happened, that's when I started focusing more on the police biases and all the stuff that's going on with the law. And because coming from Africa, everybody looks like me.
Mm.
When you're growing up, it's either because you've earned the education, or your dad is in there, whatever. Yes, there's corruption over there, because sometimes they hand these titles down the generations, like, well, I was a minister, so my son is going to be a minister, and all that stuff, which we understand that's a whole different beast that we have to deal with in Africa. But I never had to worry about the color of my skin, to say,
Yeah.
well, I will not make it because I'm Black, because everybody else around me is Black. So when I came to America and everybody's talking about racism, I knew it existed, but I'd never experienced it. So I didn't really
Yeah.
know how to react to it until my very first time. I worked for this cable company. I took some cable boxes out to this lady's house and knocked on the door. She saw the truck that I was driving has the name of the company on it. I had my ID badge on me. I had my uniform on me, and she told me to leave the thing in front on the porch, and that she will take it in. I was like, "Ma'am, I was supposed to install this for you and make sure it works."
Hmm.
And she goes, "No, you can just leave it. You don't have to come to my house." And then I realized why she was saying that.
Huh.
And I said, "You know what? I just checked like four of the houses down. Everybody was fine with me walking into their homes and doing this. And just you?" So I refused to leave the box.
Hmm.
That's what I said. "Look, I'll take the box back to the office. You can drive yourself and come get it, but
Yeah.
I'm not leaving it for you." And she called my boss, and I got there. My boss understood because he was white. He understood what was going on, but he was trying to find a way to tell me without making me feel bad about it.
Uh,
So he said, "You know what? This is what's been going on in America. I know you're new to America, but," and try to kind of really finesse it and make it sound not as bad as it was. And then I picked up on it. I said, "Look, I don't care what she thinks or whatever. I am not leaving anything anywhere. First, this is like $1,000 box.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
if I leave it out there, something happens to it, that's on me.
That's on you.
And second, that's insulting. That's how you think. That's how you feel." And he just kind of he was the first person that kind of sat me down and said, "Okay, this is the world we live in America. I
Yeah.
know we sell this dream that everybody wants to come to America. What they don't sell, the dream they don't tell you, is that when you come here, if you're Black, you're treated as a second rate, second class citizen. That's even if you're treated as a second class citizen. You might even be
Wow.
treated worse. And it was funny that it came from a white man teaching me about racism in America, because that was something I was not used to. So
Yeah.
and then I lived in Georgia, which I ended up finding out was one of the worst places to live when, like in the South, because southern states are considered more racist.
Yeah.
And I loved Georgia. Besides that experience, I probably had like two or three other experiences there until I moved to Maryland, which I had a few more in Maryland, which I was shocked. But
Mm-hmm.
it's just knowing that this exists in a country where everybody looks up to,
Mm-hmm.
and you're supposed to be the ideal standard for the world, with
Yeah.
the super nation, where the first world and all that stuff, but we're still going through this. And every time I see this on the news, and my son was born in Africa too, so when he came, that is something I had to sit him down
Mm-hmm.
and explain to him, like, hey, this is what happens when you do this. Even though you might be innocent, they're still gonna treat you as guilty.
Hmm.
And it's not because they don't believe what you're saying, it's just because of how you look.
Hmm.
And it's not because they don't want you here or anything. It's just this is ingrained in them. Some of them don't even realize it anymore. It's just second nature to them at this point. As I say, you have to watch how you navigate these relationships. I'm like, yeah, every other teen, you can hang out with your friends, your teenage friends, and all that stuff. You can have white friends and all that. I don't care, but you have to watch the way you interact with these people. They can get
Yeah.
in trouble the same way you do, but they'll be treated completely different from the way you'll be treated.
The outcome will be a lot different.
A lot different. And
Yeah.
because looks at things, it's like, why can't I do this?
Yeah.
It's not that I don't want you to do it. I'm not trying to be this strict dad. I'm trying to prevent you from having fun. It's just I want you to understand that if something goes wrong, it's a whole different thing of how you'll be treated versus how this other person will be treated.
Yeah.
And it would take us going to court and all that stuff just to prove your innocence, where this other kid would just say, well, I didn't really know, I'm sorry, and there'll be just a slap on the wrist and they say you can go home,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you
It's
end up
it's
having to
tough.
stay there. Yeah, so that's a struggle that I face as far as that, and I know you probably face the same thing as well. But one question I've always had, because all my friends, well, I'm the one with a teenage kid. All the other ones are just starting to have babies now. Yeah, so I have my goddaughter who's she just turned 1 month.
Uh-huh.
So she's and then I have another friend whose daughter is about maybe 4. So they're not there yet.
Yeah. Yeah. They got
Uh,
time.
they got time. So, and I've been already prepping my best friend. Say, hey, look, time is gonna come when she's gonna start dating. And as a black father, how do you handle your daughter? Because I would probably lose it. Because
You
how do
know.
you handle it? Because I feel it's different for boys.
That's
Um,
yeah.
and and I know this is wrong because it's that society setting those standards.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's different for boys. Like my brother, whenever my nephew like has like a breakup or anything, my brother just goes like, he needs to learn. He'll suck it up. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
I'm like, I feel like now he just had a daughter too, and she's about a couple of months old. I was like, I don't think he's gonna be thinking the same way
No, I
when he
guarantee
gets
you
to that
not.
level. So how do you handle when it comes to stuff like that, like dating and having friends of the opposite sex? How do you handle that?
Me, well, at first we used to have this joke when she was like 10 years old. I'd be like, when are you gonna get married? And she'd be like, when I'm 30. I'm like, when like that. We
Yeah.
used to joke her out like that. Um, but no, no, we're open. We have open conversations about these things all the time. So it could be uncomfortable.
Hmm.
So uh, a lot of times, like we'll be talking, and in my head, I'm just like really nervous about the conversation or really anxious about the conversation. But um, I don't ever want us to lose that openness with each other. So I just suck it up. I just like grit my teeth and have the conversation and sit there and listen to what she has to say instead of just being upset. And to be honest, now She's 18. Even before she was 18, my daughter's pretty mature,
Hmm.
or I should say very mature. So uh, I just trust her, man. Like I really do just trust her. I trust her decision making. I trust that she's gonna do the right thing. So it's not even me just giving her advice. It's more most of the time it's me just listening, and if there's a chance for or an opportunity where I could offer some guidance and be like, hey, this is how I would handle the situation, then I tell her, and she's usually open to listening, and she'll come back to me and tell me how it went.
No, that's awesome because and that's a struggle as black men we face because like you having a daughter, I feel like you have to go to that next level where you have to show that where I guess a taboo thing to say the emotional side because apparently
Mhm.
men should not be emotional.
Yeah.
That's news to me. I never went to that conference, but because and having to and being a single parent as well
Mhm.
for me I know sometimes when we have conversations and I try to like kind of show emotions and he goes like wait what like
Mhm.
what are you trying to be what are you trying to be emotional and all that stuff so I guess that's why usually I'll just recruit my wife and because he would take that same message perfectly when it comes from her
Yeah.
but coming from me, I guess he expects me to be this stern individual. He expects me to be this what he's seen on YouTube as the man of the house, and he sees me trying to have this soft, as he considers, conversations with him, and
Yeah.
he's not as receptive if it's coming
Mhm.
from me.
Mhm.
But and I see where you are at being a single parent. That's a whole different dynamic because it's just the two of you guys, and you guys have to be able to have those conversations. And I know society has taught us that we can't do that as men, and even the black culture
Tuh.
promotes that. Like, oh no,
Yeah.
you can't do that. No, you're punk for doing that. It's like, no,
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm just trying to have a conversation with my child.
Yeah.
And I know like my brother, well, he's a whole different person, and his thing is his kids will learn on
Mhm.
their own some of these things because they need to just kind of learn this thing. I was like, well, maybe you want to set them up a little bit to kind of like, I said, nah, they'll figure it out. I was like, nah, you probably want to set them up so they understand what to expect. And he's like, well, once or like my nephew said, once he gets his heart broken several times, he'll get it. I'm like,
Mm.
no, why does he have to go through this several times to get it? Like, not because you
When you could
went
just
through
help
that.
him. Yeah.
Exactly. I said just because you went through that. And I love my brother and I bug him all the time because he would check on me, say, hey, how you doing? It's like, I'm fine. So cool. I'm like, you know what? You could just say I love you, right? He's like, what? I was like, you can just say I love you. You don't have to be like this. And then he goes like, what are you talking about? Well, I love you. I said, I know you're not trying to say, it, but I love you too. And he
Oh
was just like,
man.
whatever, man, you're weird.
Uh,
It's just things like that. And I have friends like that as well. Like they will hang around their family members and maybe we're heading out somewhere, and then somebody like the mother will say, "Hey, I love you," and you just like, "Oh, whatever, that lady, man," and leave.
mm,
It's like it's so hard to just say those words. I'm
yeah.
like, it's not gonna make you any less of a man. And as parents, we try to, and I know I'm guilty of this sometimes, to try to portray this like I'm the man of the house. I have when I say this, when I speak, you should tremble and
Mhm.
all that stuff. But then when I do things like that and I go back and I reflect upon it and say, well, what am I teaching my sons? I'm teaching them the things I'm trying to go against. I'm teaching them that you have to be this to be considered a man. I'm not
Yeah.
teaching them. Yeah, so it's hard trying to what a man quote unquote society says a man should be, but you
Mhm.
also know what you are as a person. And there's that struggle where, I'm a man, it doesn't mean I have to be this emotionless being, but I tend to revert to society's definition every now and then.
Yeah, because it's easier, and also too, I think it's more so a question of leadership. Like how do you want to lead? Because if you're a leader in your household, um, what are those expectations like? Because even in a single mother household, those same kind of that same aggressive kind of nature, or that same let's say masculine kind of nature is they express the same thing too. Sometimes the single mother would express that too. So I think in the Black community specifically, it's a question of partly of the survival, partly of like leadership. Like this is how I was raised, especially like if we're talking about like our parents from our like our generation. They're going to say like this is how I was raised, so like that's part of how you are, because they definitely come from that generation where it's like I'm the man, you're the child, you do what I say. Like that's, and there is not too much hugging, not too much kissing and stuff like that. um so I mean, it's just it becomes complicated unless you've seen that or have experienced that within your own family. So uh I mean, I just knew, or I just try, because it's not like it's a perfect kind of system or a perfect kind of um like relationship that we have, or perfect kind of parenting that I do. But I just, again, for me it's about trying to be open, um trying to not get too caught up into the whole narrative that I have to be this kind of way to be a man or to be a father and stuff like that. Um, I want her to be open. I want her to be emotional. I want her to express herself. But there's also like a balance, and I mean, there is a balance of again being in charge and being a leader. So I look at those qualities more as leadership qualities. Like I just want to make sure that I'm a strong leader, um, and that she sees my example, and then she could look at me, and see how I operate, and see that like I wake up every morning to make like 5:30 every morning to make sure I'm getting my writing in. She sees the progress of where we came from before, as far as our financial status and our economic status, to where we are right now. So she's seen the entire kind of vision. That's kind of the one of the benefits of having a child young. They get to see you grow. So she's seen that entire vision. So I think of that narrative of a man has to be like super masculine and type A, and I try to make sure that I infuse some reality into it, because it can't be that all the time. It definitely, when you're not a single, definitely when you're a single father, it just can't be like that all the time. But you can be a strong leader, you can be a vulnerable leader at the same time, and you can still be a man of your word and someone who commands respect, and but still be sensitive. So I think it's just balance, and again, being a leader and understanding your family.
No, yeah, definitely, I agree with that. And another thing is, I've always felt like it's okay for your kids to see that you've had mistakes as well. And
Yes.
it's because I know when I was growing up, it's for some reason none of the adults around me ever had anything less than an A in a class. It's like when I was in school, I was like, "Really? Did you always have an A though?" And because it's miraculous they forgot all the C's that they had.
They
I
did.
guess the older they get, the more A's they start getting in their classes, in their minds. And it's like, I never failed a class when I was in school. I was like, really? If I ask your mom right now, that will she tell me the same thing?
Yeah.
And like that generation, especially like the Black community, and this is common amongst Africans, Haitians, and
Mhm.
the Caribbeans, and all that stuff. It's there's this thing that they like say you do this because I say so. Like you don't
Yes.
even ask. You don't even want to say like give your own perspective because that's gonna be something.
Mhm.
And I've seen friends of mine get raising their kids the same way.
Mhm.
And I want to say that I'm fortunate enough to be in a different space, like in a different society where it's okay to express yourself more.
Mhm.
Because some of my friends that are still in Africa, still back home, raising their kids the same way they were raised,
Mm.
because that's the only thing they know. And for
Exactly.
me, being exposed to different things, seeing my non-black friends raising their
Mhm.
kids in different, I was like, wait a minute,
Mm.
that is not a bad way to do it. Like,
Yes.
actually sit down and have a conversation with your child. It's not gonna make them any worse than whooping them every single day.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
'cause
My mom gets so, or used to anyway. She gets so mad at me because I was so like I would do that. I would pretty much treated my daughter like she was an adult. So I would
Yeah.
like give her the chance to talk back, and you could have an opinion, and we could sit down and have talk about this, and like you want to do something, tell me what you want to do and tell me why you want to do it, and let's go, let's make that happen, and I never hit her, never, like we barely even scream, like we don't even get into arguments and stuff like that. Like if she gets rude, we talk it out. So that used to bother my mom to no end, because she's like, no, you gotta be like just, like, because I'm born in Trinidad. So I'm from the Caribbean. Yeah, I'm from the Caribbean. So I came to Toronto when I was really young, about 6 years old. But I come from that Caribbean, West Indian background of kids are seen, not heard. You do as whatever I say, you do it. And like you just said, it's zero questions asked. So, and it's so similar. Like it's that we have a similar story, because I saw the way other people raise their kids. Um, although I had my daughter young, I was able to kind of incorporate those other lessons and be like, that's like, I like that style better. I like being able to have the conversation. I like being able to like have my daughter kind of talk back a little bit, so she could express herself and feel like she has an opinion no matter how old she is. You know what I'm saying? So that it just works. It ends up working better. I think Michelle Obama said something really, really powerful the other day, or in her book, I should say. She said that um her parents had the similar style like we're talking about. Like her parents raised her like we're raising our kids. And she said that the reason her parents did that, because they always said, I'm raising adults. I'm raising them to be adults. I'm not raising them to be kids. You know what I mean? So why would I treat them like a kid? You know what I'm saying? So, and again, it comes down to definitely having a little bit of trust in your parenting and trust in your child, to be like, you know what, like what I'm telling them is going to come through. So even if I feel like I'm so confident in my daughters, like even if she goes a little bit left, I know she'll never go too far, because she has a really strong foundation. So even she tries a little bit of this over here, that's fine, the
Yeah.
experiment. I trust that she'll come back center and be fine.
Now you see, that's something that, like I was saying, that our parents just don't have that trust that,
Mm-mm.
hey, like even up to now, like they see something, I get a phone call. So you just gonna go ahead and do that? It's like I'm in my 30s. I'm a grown man. I have kids. I have a job. I have a house. I'm a grown man. Like, why am I being called out for my actions? Like, really? It's like, well, I just want to make sure you understand the ramifications. Like, I get it. Like, I honestly get, like, I'm a grown man. Trust me, I can handle it. Whatever it is, I can handle it at this point. But
Yeah,
and I know they can't help it.
they
They
can't.
can't help it. That's just their generation. That's what they how they were raised, and they believe they're doing what's best for us. And so, like, I know my mom, when she hears that one of her grandkids is doing this, like, she's like, "Really? I can't believe he's doing this." Like, just let him be. He'll be fine. Trust me. Like, we let them do whatever. Like, my son, he wanted to pierce his ears. It's like, when he turned 18, you
Hmm.
can go for yourself and do it. But it's just because my schedule is so crazy, like, I don't have the time to go. I
Hmm.
said, it's not that I don't want you to do it, but you can definitely do it. On the day of his birthday, actually,
Hmm.
he woke up that morning with, "Dad, I'm 18." Uh, I was like, "Yeah, so I know." He's like, "Well, you told me when I was 18 I could pierce my." I said, "Okay, fine.
Yeah,
Go ahead and do it." He went
do
to the
it.
mall. He
Yeah.
did it. Ended up paying like a ridiculous amount for it, and then found out that he was just kinda duped to the price. He could have gotten it done for way cheaper. And then he's like, "Oh," I was like, "Well, welcome to the real world, my
Welcome to the
son."
real.
I said, "That's what happens. That's what happens." It's like, "Oh, well, I didn't know." So they gave him this fancy spray, and it's just a saline spray. I said, you could have just done salt water, right?"
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like, "Oh, really?" I was like, "Well, now you've learned.
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
what happens to adults." But it's definitely refreshing to hear that there are people out there in our generation trying to raise their kids in a better way. And I know it's not just the two of us in the Black
yeah,
community, and I hope it's not just the two of us, because there's a lot of Black teenagers out there that need somebody that's thinking different,
yeah,
that is there to raise, like you said, Michelle said, raise adults and not
yeah,
kids. Because especially what is going on in the world right now, that's what we need. We need adults. We need people
Yes.
that know how to navigate and how to push the next generation further and help promote the culture. Because honestly, I'm gonna say this: the people on YouTube is not it. Because
No,
and what people fail to realize is some of these people are these are entertainers.
thank you.
In their real
Thank
lives, I
you.
don't believe that's all they do. These are entertainers. They're entertainers. They do the things that we want to see them do on social media, and then we don't see them 24 hours a day. We don't
Exactly.
know what they do when they're off social media. They
Mhm.
live their lives. They have families. We see these people with their families thriving, but then when we see them on social media, they're singing about all these different things. So there's a disconnect, right? Your family is like any other regular family, but on social media you act one way.
Yeah.
But that's definitely something I tell him to just pay attention to. I say, hey, as much as you're watching these people do these things, I want you to also watch these other people and see what they're doing. And I
Yep.
want you to try to pick the two things, the most positive features or the most positive things that are going to work for you. And then I want you to apply that.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're gonna make mistakes. Things are gonna happen. You're not gonna always like the results of your decisions, but it's a learning process. I was like, I'm always here if you need help. I'm always here. You can always come ask. Because
Always.
we will sit in a car and this kid would not say a single word to me. Like the last time we drove all the way to go see his grandma in Georgia, we drove 10 hours.
Uh-huh.
I think he said like 5 words to me. It was just on social media all the way down. He talks more to my wife than he
Yeah.
does to me. And but now I think now that we work together when we're driving home, we have good conversations and all that stuff. So I think it was just him seeing me in my element and seeing because every
Yeah.
day he sees me go and then I'll come back. But now seeing what I do, seeing how I interact with people and see how people look up to me, and then it's like,
Mhm.
oh, okay, I see. So
See
now
a different part of dad now.
we have conversations. We have conversation about work. He's so excited to tell me about his experience with work. And when we're at work, I don't interfere with what he does, and I tell everybody to treat him like any other employee. I I treat him like any other employee. I get back to the dish room. I say, hey, can you wash these dishes for me, please? Because that's what I would do to any other dishwashers. Like, hey, when you're done with this, can you do this? Can you do this? And then I'll leave, and I'm not in his face all day.
Mhm.
Even I guess that was his fear because he postponed this working with me for a long time.
Mm.
Like, oh well, I want to look for a job with Walmart first, with this, with that. I was like, dude, come work for me. Like, you don't. Your interview is gonna be so simple. Just come work for me.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, and he went to all these interviews and everything. Nobody called him back. I'm like, I'm still open. I mean, you can always come. Eventually, he's like, you know what? I'll come work. And then he's seen that. I guess he was scared that he's gonna spend all this time with me at home and
Mhm.
then he's gonna have to deal with me at work. It's like,
Yeah.
nope, you don't have to deal with me at work. Do your job. So it doesn't work in my department. It works in a different department. It's like, do your job, do what your boss tells you to do, and you'll be good.
Yeah.
But that's man, we can have this conversation all day because there's so much stuff that goes on about being parents and just
I
like
know.
our backgrounds and the kids who are raising. And for me, one of the major things of how I deal with him as a teenager is because I know his brothers are looking up to him,
Mhm.
and they're gonna see how he reacts, how he acts when he's out there, and they're gonna learn from him.
Mhm.
And I tell him all the time. I said, look. Some of the times I ask you to do certain things, it's not because I'm just trying to be a certain way. It's just I want you to understand that you're an example for your younger brothers,
Mhm.
and they're gonna see how you act, and they're gonna follow suit. If you're doing a certain thing, they're gonna want to try it too. And it's up to you. I said at some point it's gonna be up to you. You're gonna be the one calling them out on it. I said my brothers do that to me all the time. When I do something, my older brother will come in and say, "Look, there's one thing that you don't do is
Mhm.
call your mother. Get on the phone and call her and talk to her." But I'm not the
Mhm.
person that likes talking on the phone. It's
Mhm.
like I know that you don't like talking on the phone, but your mom doesn't know that, and she,
Yeah.
even though she doesn't accept it.
Yeah, yeah.
So just give her a call, hold on to the phone, and listen.
Wow. We're definitely alike. I'm the same way too. I struggle with that. And my mom gets upset at me. She calls me and like, you can't call your mother. Blah, blah,
Oh,
blah.
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
I
yeah.
just
Oh, I
talked
get
to
the
you
phone
3 days ago.
yeah, I get the phone call. this is your mother. I'm like, you don't think I can recognize your voice? Like, you don't think I know what you sound like? Every
It says
voicemail
mom on my
starts,
phone when you call. It says
yeah,
mom.
every voicemail starts that way. This is your mother. I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I knew it was you, but okay. And we'll have a conversation. It'll be like a 1 hour conversation, then we're
Yeah.
done. And then I'll call my brother. I say, oh my God, I just had a 1 hour conversation with her. It's like, well, at least now she's good for the next week.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just be ready for the next call. That's what he does. And so it's just like that. I tell him, it's like, look, you're gonna be the one to tell your brothers, okay, this is what this is how dad is, this is how mom
Mhm.
is, this is how you have to navigate dealing with them. And they're gonna look up because the age difference. The next one is 6 and he's 18. So there's a big gap. So I'm like,
Mhm.
they're probably gonna be stealing your car and riding it around
Yep.
town. So I just
Exactly.
want you to know that you're gonna be like a second parent to them because of the age gap. And that's how my brothers are like to me, like second parents to me, because
Mhm.
whenever I need something, I reach out to them and all that stuff. And I appreciate having older siblings because, like, my brother used to let me like, hey, you need to go through the struggle. You need to understand what it means to be an adult. Like, I'll reach out, say, hey, I'm broke. When I was in college, he's like, well, I'm sorry, man. You're gonna have to just eat that those noodles for the next month until your next paycheck comes in or your next
Mm.
refund check comes in. But I appreciate that now because I am better for it. Because if you'd done all that for me all that time, I don't think I would be been able to push myself to do certain things that got me to where I am now.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, but man, I want to go now into cry because,
Mhm.
like I said, that's my favorite thing right now on Medium. And I discovered Medium a while back, and I even got started. I wrote a few articles on Medium myself. But that when I found Cry, I was like, man, I read Men Are Drowning, and I just kept going and going. But
Yeah, yeah.
Men Are Drowning is for anybody out there. If you're looking for something to read, if you're a black man, you definitely need to read this. And I feel like it speaks to a struggle that, and I know it's for all men, but as a black
Mhm.
man, I think it speaks to a struggle that we go through
Mhm.
that we expect it to be this particular type of being, even though we're struggling to fit that box or that image. But we can't help it. We just have to stay with what society tells us or what the black culture tells us we should be.
Yeah.
And that I feel like that's how we also treat black women. Because another issue
Mm.
we've been having is we black women protect black men, but we're not protecting black women.
Mm.
And that's because in our culture, it's okay to do that. It's almost because it's on the the music videos we see. It's
Yep.
on all these things how we treat them. It's on the films we watch.
Mhm.
We see how what was this movie? I think it was Baby Boy. It was with
Yep.
Tyrese.
Yep, that's
Yes,
Tyrese and Snoop Dogg. Yep.
yeah, stuff like that. We see how the black man was treated like a baby. The movie's called Baby Boy.
Yeah. I just took that I just realized that. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, so he was treated like a kid and everything. Mom protected him and everything.
Yeah.
And then you have this image of like this father figure who's trying to teach him to be a man. It's like stop being a baby and all that stuff.
Yep.
Like you have to. So it's either you're being treated as a baby or you're supposed to be this aggressive type A person. There was no in between. There was no middle ground where okay, you don't have to be as aggressive and you don't have to be a baby either. And we're shown to told to not show emotions. We're not supposed to be upset when somebody dies. We're supposed to just like men don't cry. I'm like, why can't I cry? Like, come on, like you're hurt. And in society now, it's when friends get killed or whatever, you are supposed to retaliate. You're supposed to go find a gun and do the same thing to the whoever did it. Like you're not told to or let the law handle it. It's like if you don't do it, how can you call yourself a man if you can avenge your friend's death? Oh, if a cop pulls you over, how can you call yourself a man if you don't try to defend yourself? And we like, especially black men, we forget sometimes when we're in that situation that these people already have a bias towards us. And now we're trying to be aggressive because I feel like you disrespected me as a man, trying to tell me, oh, to sit on the floor or to keep quiet or whatever, while you do something which I know you're wrong for pulling me over, but now you're disrespecting me, and I can't allow that. That's how we end up having these numbers go up. Another unarmed black man shot or stuff like that. And I'm not saying that's all what happens in every situation, but it's just when I was reading it, those are the things that were coming to my mind. It's like these are the things that society is partly responsible for it.
Mm,
Well, I'd say 90% responsible for it,
yeah.
because that's what they've taught us to be. They're like, oh, as a black man, you can't have this kind of conversations. Like when I have conversations with my employees and stuff, and certain conversations, they're like, wow, like you feel comfortable having this conversation. I'm like, yeah, I'm a human being, right? Like,
Yeah, human
cer-
first.
yeah, certain things happen that you have to deal with it emotionally. It's like, well, I've never met any other black men that have conversations like this. I'm like, well, I'm sorry you've not met somebody that should have these kind of conversations with you, because guess what? It's teaching you to do the raise your kids the same way, and tell them that they can't express themselves, they can't be upset. You're telling them they have to be aggressive. You're telling them that if somebody steps out of line, they have to push back and be combative and all that stuff. And you teaching your young sons that a real man don't cry. You got to be strong. You got to be able to defend your honor. And I've had to terminate people just because they had a guest that probably these are you're in the restaurant industry. Customers are gonna try. They go
Mm,
out to eat, they feel like they own the world. And they're gonna say something, and then a server will get really upset. Oh, he disrespected me. I was like, what? By telling you that the spoon was dirty, and
yeah.
that maybe you need to do something better. You need to do better with your service. Really? The spoon was freaking dirty. You need to do better
Yeah.
with the service. That's all he said. Oh no, no, it's the way he said it. What do you mean the way he said? That's the worst thing that I don't
That is
like hearing that. It's the way he
always,
said it.
yeah.
Like, what does that even mean? The way you said it, and it's like, oh no, I'm not about to let somebody disrespect me. I'm a man. I was like, I can see that you're a man,
Mm,
but the way you
mm,
acting right now is not telling me that you're a man. And
exactly.
oh, and I push them all the time. Like I push them all the time because I want to challenge them to understand the difference between what society tells them a man should be and how they should act. It's
Hmm.
like that definition is your own to make. It's I'm a man. I'm also a person that would express my emotions when I feel
Hmm.
upset. I will cry if I'm sad.
Hmm.
Um, if I will laugh as well if I'm happy. If there's something on TV that sometimes gets really sappy, I'll
Hmm.
feel emotional about it. I
Yeah.
mean, I sometimes hide it from my wife because she'll make fun of me, but I feel
Yeah, yeah.
emotional about it. And it's so hard to have conversations like that with a lot of black men, because it becomes like, oh, really? Like you're a wuss, you're this, and there's all these terms for men that express themselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I feel like maybe I was just have you kind of express like where you were coming from when you wrote that piece.
Yeah. I was really coming from the perspective of actually going on the other side. I was struggling with it. So
Mhm,
I was, being a single father, it was just me and my daughter. I was just like, we've been through so much. I didn't and when if there was a moment where something was off or I was really struggling with something, I just didn't want her to see that. And that's where my struggle was. And then it came a point where I was like, this is actually not good. Like I caught myself, you know what I'm trying to say? Because even though I was struggling, I didn't want to express the struggle. I didn't want to express that emotion. And then I'm like, no, 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 this is the wrong way to go about it. I need to be like, I'm not feeling good right now. I'm off right now. This has been a hard day right now. I'm stressed out right now. I need to be able to say those things. But I had already been conditioned again, like kind of what you were speaking about before. I'd already been conditioned to be like, nah, I'm gonna detach myself from that situation. I don't want her to think that I'm weak, blah 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 blah. Like that's how I was thinking. Like I don't want her to think that I'm weak, you know? So it was actually I came from that position of struggling. And then when I identified that in myself, I was like, oh wow, this is probably what so many men go through. You know what I'm saying? And then I was able to relate it to that story of when I was younger. We were talking about this off air a little bit. When I was younger, and I literally almost drowned. So I was in a pool with my friend at my friend's pool, and I like kind of just I stepped into the deep end because it went from shallow to deep, and I stepped into the deep end and I almost drowned. So I kind of compared those two stories and said that men are literally drowning because we feel like we can't be ourselves, we can't be our full selves because society has already put us into a box where they expect us to be this way. And you can magnify that times 100 for black men because we put ourselves in a deeper box that says we definitely can only be this way. And if you're not this way, then you're not a black man. You know what I'm trying to say? So uh, we that struggle has been something that even though I'm not saying I was ever a super aggressive person and stuff like that, but the emotional part, I always try to distance myself from that. And it got to a point, like I said, it was just, I realized I was doing myself a disservice because my daughter's watching me. My daughter's saying like, oh, I don't have to be emotional either then. You know what I'm saying? Like if he could just get through it and he's not, ever stressed out or he's not ever, um, down or he's not ever sad or I don't ever see him cry or out like if she's seeing that she's gonna be like that's okay too and that's not okay. I had to go back and tell her so many times like yo you could be emotional you could like I have to physically tell her and verbally tell her because I know it was years of her watching me just kind of like disassociate myself from that emotion. So it's definitely not instinctual. The instinct is to be the what society says is a man. That's the instinct. So you have to find a balance, and like I said, it's possible to be a great leader because I think that's what in a sideways kind of way I think that's kind of what men are worried about is like how can I be a leader and be vulnerable, how can I be a leader to my child and be soft, how can I be a leader and express all this emotion like she can't or he can't see that, you know what I'm saying? So we need to kind of separate those two things and say like yeah you could be a leader of your household, you could be a teacher to your children, be a guide to your children, be an inspiration and a mentor to your children, and at the same time um still express all those emotions because that's life. If you don't express those emotions they're going to come out in some way. That's another thing that I realized, eventually it's going to come out in some way, and the way it comes out, it might not be one that you can control, um, or it might come out at a time that you really don't need it to come out. So one way or another, the emotions are going to come out. Like I said, I learned that kind of the hard way. So I the men are drowning piece was based 100% on that. It's based on my own personal struggle, and obviously you read the piece, and even in the piece, I'm struggling with it. And coming to terms with exactly how to adapt that new mentality to the teachings of my daughter and my abilities as parents. So, and I take that stuff seriously. I take actually try and to improve myself as a person. I actually put focus into being a better person. I actually put focus into being a better parent. Like I think about it, just like how we're having a conversation here. I think about ways where I could interact with my daughter on a better level. Think about ways where I could inspire her differently. I think about ways where I could be better emotionally. So I'm always checking myself. I'm always trying to do that. So that was one of those moments where I was just like checking myself, and it came out into Men Are Drowning, and people, like a lot of people responded to that piece. It's one of my favorite pieces and one of the pieces that gets the most reaction, and I think it's because it's just very real.
No, yeah, definitely. Because like I said, like as soon as I started reading it, I was like, oh my god, like this is definitely me. And the crazy part, like you just talked about almost drowning when you were younger, and I shared with you off air that the same thing happened to me.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's why I was like, wow, not only did we have almost an identical experience, but like what you're writing right now speaks deeply to me. And my piece actually was called Men Hurt Too.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
yeah,
so
same thing.
yes, because a lot of people, and I think I wrote that several years ago, and people were reading it. It's like, yeah, like I actually see what you're saying, but what they were not saying is like this resonates with me as a black man. They were just
Mm,
saying like, yeah, this is an interesting piece. I really like it, but I feel like it's because there was something in there that was saying something, saying, well, yeah, it resonates with me. The same way I read your piece, I was like, yeah, I feel it.
mm,
And I know a lot of black men will read it and see it. Some people might struggle with it to try to accept it, but what I love the most about it is you didn't end up making like a say, okay, this is the final call. This is what I think should happen. You just left it open.
exactly.
Yeah, left it
Exactly.
up. It's like I'm not telling you whether it's wrong to do one way or the other, but I just want to let you know, men are drowning. And,
Yeah.
I love that because it gives them that opportunity to say, okay, let me make my own call on this one. Like, how
Hmm.
do I feel about it at the end of it? After I've reflected on everything he said and see how that relates to my life, what do I think?
Yeah.
And I think that's a great piece, man. That piece is still, it's like just thinking about it right now, I'm
Thank
still
you. Thank
getting
you.
more stuff out of it. And
Thank you.
like I said, I you can relate that thing to how we black men do certain things now. Like I was talking about how we relate to black women.
Yeah.
It's because society has taught us to do that.
Yeah.
As much as we want to disagree with that, we don't treat black women the same way they treat us.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's something we need to work on as black men. And
Yeah.
I
We
think
need
my
to get a
generation,
lot better. A lot
yeah,
better. You're right.
yeah, my generation has to do. We have to do more about that because I know there was this Black Lives Matter activist in I believe it was in Florida. I forgot her name. She was killed by a black man. I was like, can you imagine? You've been out there fighting to protect black lives, just for your life to be taken by a black man.
That is
Yeah,
I
it's like,
can't even begin to explain what that must feel like.
yeah, so when I read the news, I was like, "Wow, are you kidding me right now? Like, we're literally in this, we're in the middle of it, and you're doing this.
Yeah.
Like, you're basically giving them the tools to dismantle our movement. You're telling them, like, well, you're fighting us for being racist and whatever, but look at what he just did to one of your activists,
Mm,
and that wasn't even a white guy that you're saying we're racist. It's one of yours."
yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's we're doing it to ourselves sometimes. Like we're sabotaging our own progress sometimes.
Yeah,
And
I think we need to also you're absolutely right. And I think
mhm,
I hope we can get to a point where we could actually have that conversation as a separate conversation from the police brutality stuff and what we're trying to
exactly, yeah,
accomplish on that, because that's one thing that's totally correct and totally happening on that side. That's like an external factor that's kind of infiltrating our community and destroying it, right?
mhm,
Police brutality and stuff like that. On the other side, which is a separate conversation, is just like internally, like how can we do better within our communities, right? How can we
yeah,
stop um, treat our women better? How can we project better messages? How can we stop this violence um, that we're having internally within our communities? How can we raise better children? Like those are things that are internally within our communities. We need to do way better. You know what I'm trying to say? So I think right now it's a sensitive time. So bringing up those topics, sometimes people think that you're just saying like you're not talking, you're not in line
exactly.
with the BLM movement. And I'm just like, no, I'm not saying, I'm saying that's, yeah, do that. That's 100% important. But on this side, this is important too. I think it should be happening simultaneously because we can't grow as a community if we're not helping ourselves. It's
No,
literally impossible.
no,
I don't
yeah,
think people understand that. It's like as much as we want to stop these external factors, it's literally impossible to grow unless we help ourselves and do better ourselves internally. So I'm happy that you even brought that up because it's a very complicated conversation to have these days.
no, it is like definitely like this current space that we're in is very complicated, and like I mentioned also as. Karen also has two books out: "The Thoughts of a Fractured Soul" and "Beauty Scars." Can you just give us like a brief summary of each of them and what they're about?
Yes, for sure. Thoughts of a Fractured Soul was the first book I ever wrote, and it's very loosely based on my life. So it's, like all the characters are very similar. Like I was a teenage father dealing with um, all the trials of having a kid at 18 years old or whatever. But instead, in that book, because it's fictional, I actually like reversed it and said, like what if this person just failed at everything? You know what I'm saying? Like all the decisions that he made were just bad. You know what I mean? So that's what that book is about. Really, it's about a person who is a young man who's very ambitious and has all of the talent and abilities in the world. His teachers actually call him Ace because he aces every test, but poor decision making has left him stagnant, and he's become mediocre. And so he's reflecting back on his life. That's why I call it Thoughts of a Fractured Soul. He's reflecting back on his life,
Okay.
and looking at all the different thoughts, different parts of his life that ended up left him to end up stagnant. So that's what Thoughts of a Fractured Soul is about in a nutshell. And then Beauty Scars um, is a little bit, it's way different. It's a more of a magical realism story. So what I say when I say that is when I say that what I mean is that at the beginning of the story, I have a young girl named Treasure get hit by a car. And she gets hit by a car, and instead of becoming like scarred, she actually becomes more beautiful. And it talks about the deep meaning of the story is really about what does beauty really mean, and what's the power of beauty, and how do young women use that beauty in different ways, and what happens when that beauty is taken away from you. So the deep meaning of it. But the surface level story is really like a love story of two young teenagers. So one, they dream about each other, and they talk to each other in their dreams, and then they realize that both of them have had tragedies happen in their life, and then they actually meet in real life, fall in love in real life, and then again, like the reality of sets in, and then tragedy sets in, and they try to figure out how they could live a life together. So that's this kind of surface level story of it. So yeah, that's the both books that are out right now.
No, definitely, man. Like, I definitely want to get into Thoughts of a Fractured Soul, and
Yes.
because I actually have a book that it's not published yet because I've been trying to do a self-publishing, and
Hmm.
the title is actually "Start the Life of a Nobody," and that's
Hmm.
loosely based on my life as well, growing up back home during the Civil War, and then coming here, finding out I was a father at what was 17,
Hmm.
and hearing about all this stuff, going through all those trials and all that stuff. But definitely, I'm definitely gonna read it. It's crazy that there's like our lives is kind of
Yeah, it's very
mirroring each other.
similar. It's weird.
That's like, wow, that's crazy. But you're a ghostwriter.
Yes.
I've heard a lot about ghostwriters, and I've never actually met one. So you're my very first ghostwriter. Like, what's the process? Like, let's say somebody wants to do, like, wants to get a ghostwriter, whatever. Like, what's the process? What happens with ghostwriting? I know a lot. We see all these books with CEOs and everything, and I know
Uh-huh.
half of them don't have the time to write those books.
Oh
But
no, not even
yeah.
half of them. Like 99.9% of them don't have the time to write a book. The only CEO or celebrity I've known who wrote their own book was Phil Knight. He wrote Shoe Dog, and he actually
Mhm.
went back to Oregon and took classes on writing to
Oh
do that.
wow.
But ghostwriting is just that. It's getting into other people's lives and other people's worlds, and creating their story for them. So most of the time it does happen to be CEOs because they want to tell their stories, but I've written memoirs too. Um, and really the process is extensive interviewing up front. So you interview them, you interview their families, you interview their business partners, you interview their employees sometimes. Um, you just do a lot of interviews up front, and then you eventually come out with an angle of a story that you think is going to work. So after those interviews are done, you kind of feel like, okay, this is the best angle there, or this is the best perspective that could be most captivating for an audience, and then you start building out that perspective, and then you just write the book, then you end up writing the book. The good part is that it can be lucrative. I mean, you could make, anywhere from 20,000 up, all the way up to 100,000 to ghostwrite someone's book. Um, but you don't make any royalties most of the time. Like they don't, you don't contractually, like I've personally never had a contract where they allowed me to take royalties, and your name is not mentioned anywhere. So I can't even tell you the people I've ghostwritten for. So it's kind of, that part gets kind of tricky. You have to have a trusted name, because and sometimes, like, because if you start getting into bigger clients, they want to know for sure, like, especially if they're celebrities, they want to trust you. So sometimes you have to get permission from the other people who you've ghostwritten books for, just as a one-time exception, to be like, can I show this other person that I've written your book for you? And they'll let that happen as a one-time exception. So it gets tricky, but no, that's the only part that we need to figure out a little bit better. Like, how do we get paid on the back end for creating a work that and sometimes like we've like on my team we've written books that have gone on to do pretty well, and we haven't made $1 back from that. So that's the kind of crappy part. But again, it's still fun. I still enjoy it. It's still how I make a lot of my money is through ghostwriting. So I can't knock it too hard.
No, that's crazy. So ghostwriters people are the ninjas of the writing world.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly.
they're there, but you never see them. They
You
create all this
never see them.
magic for you, but you never see them. That I
And
mean,
not only books, sorry, just quickly, not only books, we ghostwrite articles for celebrities. So when you see articles written on Forbes or something like that,
mhm,
9 times out of 10, it's a ghostwriter. When you see a post, um, there's a Instagram post where someone's talking and it's a celebrity and and it seems like they're doing like a scripted something,
yeah,
ghostwriter. So I just want to
wow,
let people know it's ghostwriters do a lot. Sorry,
wow.
I know I interrupted
No,
you.
no, no, that's okay. That's cool. But it's because sometimes I listen or read some of these articles and I'm like, yeah, like he's really saying it. But then I think, like, how does he even know about this? Like, why is he even saying this? Now I know why. Now I know
Yep,
why.
now you know. Now you know.
Now I know why. And it's crazy because we all will read these books and we resonate with them and everything. Yes, it's based loosely off of somebody's life or whatever their thought process, but there's somebody out there that spent all that time
Yep.
when like kind of walked through that person's mind and try to figure out what they wanted to say and say that. It must be really hard sometimes because I know writers, you tend to be personal with you
Yeah.
with your piece, with your, whatever you create, because that's a part of you. Because
Yes.
every time you put that pen down to a paper, you're sharing a part of yourself, of your soul with that, or with the people who are gonna read that. So how do you deal with that? That like, okay, this is a part of me, but it's also a part of somebody else, and I
It's
can never
actually
claim.
You know what? It's actually a little bit more liberating because it's so emotionally taxing to write about yourself and share your life and share your vulnerability. It's there's a lot of emotions that are attached to that. So when you're writing about somebody else, that's like, oh, I don't have to worry about like me being sharing my life or being vulnerable. I've just got to do that for somebody else, and so it makes you feel a little bit more free to experiment and try different things and really get to the heart of a situation. And then also too, though it plays off each other. So you as a writer, you understand or as an author specifically too, you understand the depth that you have to get to really connect with somebody. So you try to bring that into their world. If you're when you're ghostwriting for somebody else, you understand the depth that you have to get to. So you really have to push them when you're interviewing them and asking questions. Which I think is a part that a lot of ghostwriters kind of they skimp out on a little bit and they don't get deep enough and then those books don't connect. The depth, there's so much content out there. There's so much, especially today. It's overwhelming, right? So for someone to really connect with something, you really have to go deep. Whether it's deep into the knowledge of what you're pushing out, or it's deep into the like the emotion of your story. You have to get to a deep place. If you don't get to a deep place, then you're just not it's there's too much surface stuff out there that you're just not going to resonate. So that again, it's freeing because you're not going deep into yourself as a when you're ghostwriting for someone else. You're getting deep into someone else's life. So it actually makes it a little bit easier, to be completely honest.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, I'm gonna make sure we have all these links posted to Karen's books and everything. But if people want to get in touch with you, can they get in touch with you, Karen?
Uh, CurrentCarter.com is the best way, or Current Carter on every platform: Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. It's Current Carter, Kern Carter. I have a unique enough name to where I was able to get that handle. So yeah, Current Carter, everything for sure. And yeah, my books are on Amazon, both of them. Um, Thoughts of a Fractured Soul is also on different platforms. But again, just type in Current Carter, you'll see it. You'll see everything.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm gonna make sure I provide all the links to Current's books and also to the Medium
Yeah,
magazine, crime magazine. Please go ahead and read. Make sure you actually interact with the articles, like them, because I know Medium. I think that's how they track the stats and everything.
yeah, they
Make
do.
sure you do that, please. It's not just read it. You gotta actually like it. Do the claps. I think it's a
Do the
clap, right?
claps. Do the
Yeah,
claps.
you
Yeah.
gotta do the claps, guys. 'Cause that's how you're gonna make sure that keeps pushing and it keeps going higher and higher. It's been awesome talking to you today, brother.
Thank you,
Because it's
man.
like I said, I could keep going and going
I know.
keep going all day, but we've come to a point where I call this say it out loud, and I always ask my guests, I say, what is one issue or one thing that is affecting us? Usually it will be as affecting Black men, but this I want to just kind of expand it instead of as affecting the Black community. And what that you would like to share with us, that you like to say out loud. What is that one issue that you like to say out loud, and how are you working on addressing that issue, and how can we help address that issue?
The one thing that's really hurting, I'm going to speak very locally to Toronto right now.
Mhm,
The thing that's really hurting Black community and Black youth specifically in Toronto is this increase in gun violence.
mhm.
And it's something that's been pretty steady. It's been a problem for a while now, but the the way that I have to tell a quick story. The way I kind of see the situation is that people overcomplicate how to address these situations. You need to occupy kids' times. To me, it could be that simple. I was fortunate. I grew up in community housing, but I also within that community housing, we had basically like almost like a 24-hour community center attached to my apartment building. So we could go down there and get food, get help with homework. We had a basketball court down there. And it really saved a lot of the kids in that building, and it went till 11 o'clock at night, so parents didn't even have to be home, so parents could go to work and do their thing, so it went till late at night. So we really need to find different ways to first expose our kids to different situations, um, and occupy their time a lot better. So what I'm really working on right now is working in partnership with this program called Launchpad, and Launchpad offers just that. It's like a huge, if you can imagine a very big community center where they use sports as their as a draw. So you could go in there and yes, play basketball and baseball and soccer and all those things, but then you could also go in there and get meals and do workshops, and all of this is 100% free. 100% free. You don't have to pay for anything. I want to be able to bring that program to every place, every uh, troubled part of Toronto. There are parts of Toronto where if Launchpad was there, was inside of that space, um, and these kids could access that space for free, and after school they didn't have to go home, and they didn't have to be hungry, and they didn't have to be alone, and they didn't have to be influenced by the streets. They would it would literally save lives. Now, if Launchpad was in I'm gonna say Rexdale and Jane and Finch, which are two parts that I'm working on getting it there. If they were in those places right now, they would save lives immediately because it would take these kids off the block when they're 9, 8, 9, 10 years old. They would take the allure of the block away. It will take the allure of I want to go and I see this guy making money this way. It'll take all that allure away and put it into something, expose them to something different. That's why I said exposure would expose them to different culinary foods. It'll expose them to different sports. It'll expose them to different workshops on like writing, creativity, photography. Expose them to workshops on coding, all that stuff for 100% free. So that's really what I'm working on right now. I want that to be my lasting kind of impact, is really trying to build these centers in spaces where you could just occupy kids' times, literally just occupy their time so they're not on the streets.
No, that is awesome, man. And definitely, I'm going to make sure I get all that information from you so I can share that with the
Mhm.
listeners, because we have to be the generation to change this, people. It's like
Yeah,
we have to be that generation. We can't keep waiting for that generation to be born, because if we don't do anything, and the new generation coming in, their thought process is a whole different from ours. They're thinking
very
differently,
different.
so we have to change the things now to be able to make it better for them.
Yeah,
And like definitely, I'm definitely gonna look into Launchpad and everything, because we need things like that, things that can
yeah.
expose our kids. Because I'm listening to like how I built the podcast with a guy Raz, and
Hmm.
we're talking to these founders, and half of them said, well, when I was 10 I had a computer, and this was back, yeah, this was
Exactly.
back in like in the early in the late 90s or in the early 90s, and when computers were not accessible to everybody.
Exactly.
So
It's
I'm thinking,
exposure and accessibility and occupying their time.
no, definitely, definitely. Because I'm looking at it as like, well, when I was in high school back home, there was one computer, and we actually had to have a computer class scheduled for all of us to go see it. And one
Yeah.
person will come, you type this thing, take your floppy disk, put it in there, do that one thing, and then you take it out. The next person comes and sits,
Yeah.
and it'd be like 20 of us. So by the time you go back, it's almost the end of the class
Yep.
because
Yeah.
everybody has to have access. And then I found out that there were people over here whose dad just bought him a computer and left it, and they were able to play around with it. And guess what? Now they're the ones coding, doing all the codings. They're the ones that have
Exactly.
companies like Squarespace and all that stuff, like building an entire company in the college dorm because you had a computer at home when you were 10.
10.
And
Exactly.
we
Exactly. It's
have
the same.
kids.
It's I'm talking the same language. So yes,
Mhm.
thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, so we have kids that are not exposed to these things, and
Mhm.
coding is it, guys. Going forward, our technology is going. We have to have these because we don't have these advantages, and like you said, kids are not exposed to these things because all they see is somebody on the block making money, so they think that's the way to go. No,
Exactly.
so definitely, I'm definitely interested to see what Launchpad is doing and want to see what you are you working with them, partnership with them. Please, if anything we can do, anything I can do, just let me know. I'm
Thank you.
all for sharing it. And we also have another other platform which is 86 Majesty, which is
Hmm.
it used to be called Black Men Who Blog. That's the
Hmm.
company, but 86 Majesty is just push all the anything a black man is doing. We're all about it. It's
Amazing.
definitely going to share that on that platform as well, just to make sure that people are hearing about it and have people know how they can help. And this, I know, I want to make sure it's also about Toronto as well. I mean, it's
Mhm.
affecting everybody, even in America, it's the same thing. But let's push what Karan is doing out there and see how we can support the brother. All right.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So Karan, it's been a pleasure having you today, and I cannot wait to get this episode out to the people and just see how they react with this.
Thank you, man. It's been great. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man.